Be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see. Be the change you want to see in the world. The world will change with the change in me. Be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see. Be the change you want to see in the world. The world will change with the change in me. Be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see. Be the change you want to see in the world. The world will change with the change in me. The world will change with the change in me.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome once again to our online virtual unity community amidst another challenging week in our nation. Let's begin this morning by breathing into this now moment together, affirming our oneness with all beings around the world, recognizing we can dissolve any and all human perceived illusions of division and separation through the light of truth and love. I'm Reverend Michelle Lynch, and I'm here this morning with Reverend Vicky Elder, as well as our Essential Sunday Service team. So we have our music director, Denise Headland. We have John Talon on drums.
Woo-hoo.
We have our council co-chair, Robin Falkenberg, doing platform, and Jan Lindenthal doing the live stream. We have Keith on sound. Keith is blowing me kisses. Keith on sound. And did I say Martha also helping with logistics? So as always, we know it takes a village to create these Sunday services, and we are just grateful for everyone that shows up to help to put this together so we can bring it to you, and we are so glad that you are joining us this morning. We begin by affirming our Unity of Monterey Bay sacred mission as an inclusive spiritual community committed to co-creating an environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, socially just, and compassionate human presence on our planet. And in celebrating our oneness, we honor the God of each of our understanding, and we affirm that innate goodness and divine essence within every individual. Will you please join me now in our statement of faith? There is only one presence and one power in the universe, God the Good, expressing as infinite God beyond us, intimate God beside us, inner God being us, divine love in action. And so it is. So as we set an intention this morning to open our hearts and minds even wider into this sacred time together, we breathe again into this present moment. And we'd like to acknowledge this morning the highest of holy days of the Jewish faith, Yom Kippur, which begins today at sundown. And so in that honor, we would like to share a prayer called Gathering in the Days of Awe. This is the season of repair, a time to reflect on how we might endure when life tears at us. We are held by the great book of life, in which it is written that we will inevitably face deprivation and discomfort, longing and forgiveness. Each among us must contemplate our own place in it all. As those of us in relationship with Judaism mark and honor the high holy days, our hearts fill with hope and fear, turning and settling, mystery and agency, accountability and acceptance. Let us gather today in somber celebration of our shared humanity and our personal power. Come, let us worship together. And that was a prayer from Leah Ongiri. So now, supported by the strength of this beloved, amazing community, we affirm together, standing in truth,
Standing in truth,
I move from fear to faith.
I move from fear to faith.
For our announcements this morning, as always, we refer you to your weekly shout out. And if you are not already receiving that, please go on to our unityofmontereybay.org website, where you can sign up to get our weekly, we call it Shout Out. It's our weekly newsletter that will keep you informed of all of the many, many amazing activities that are going on here at Unity of Monterey Bay. So please do that if you haven't already. And we also want to let you know that tomorrow night, Monday night, is the final week of this 3-week prayer respite that Molly Steele has been so wonderfully bringing to us. And there will be more things coming in the future like this, but this is the third in this series. And so it's a time of prayer and meditation and renewal and restoration. And so you are invited to that tomorrow at 7 p.m. Let's see. The Zoom link is in your shout-out. And more information about that, I'm assuming, as well. But we would love to see everyone there. It's been a wonderful time for us to just have that extra time of prayer and meditation and coming together to do that. So that's tomorrow night, Monday at 7. We also want to take a moment, as always, to bless our children. And let's also include all of the teachers who we know are struggling and having a hard time, but rising to the occasion. And so, yes, honoring all of our teachers and our children who are learning a new way of doing school, and just holding everyone in that, just supporting them and lifting them up as we know they are going through a time of transition. So we also want to hold in our hearts all of the children in our own lives, as well as our own inner children and all of the children around the world. And we allow these children to open our hearts and to remind us of that awe, that joy, that wonder, and that light that we see in them. Please join me in our blessing for the children. We love you. We bless you. We appreciate you just the way you are.
This bright light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This bright light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This bright light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
So now we're going to take a minute to deepen our blissful interconnection with Spirit. So taking a deep breath in together and letting it out with an audible sigh. We allow all distractions to gently fade away as we invite the chime to call us into the sacred space within. We ring the chime 4 times to call in the 4 directions and to remind us of our interconnection with all of creation and with the sacred circle of life. As we feel it resonate through our very beings, we follow its call into this now present moment within. Continuing to focus on our breath, with each inhale, we open our hearts and minds. We envision our breath reaching every cell of our being. And with each exhale, we see all barriers and obstacles dissolving into the divine flow. And again, as we inhale, we expand the spaciousness within us. We move beyond the limitations and boundaries of our bodies. And as we exhale, we ground ourselves deep within Mother Earth and into our oneness with the universe. Finally, we breathe our awareness into the highest expression of love, light, joy, and peace we can imagine, as we experience a transforming wave of gratitude. And with a fullness of heart, we say yes to it all, embracing, claiming, and knowing the divine Christ Spirit expressing in, through, and as us. And with a final exhale, we say, thank you, God.
Thank you, God.
So now, fully centered and transformed by the power of Spirit, we enter into our lesson and meditation time with today's daily word.
We read from today's Daily Word, shared with permission of Unity Publisher of Daily Word, that can also be found at dailyword.com. And the word is faith. I invite you to allow my words to be your words. With faith, nothing is impossible for me. With gratitude, I use my faith to trust in the good that is always present, even when it is not yet manifested. As I pray with faith, I discern the truth that always endures through even the most difficult circumstances. As I concentrate on harmony and love, all thoughts of lack, limitation, and discord simply dissolve. As I speak with faith, I use positive words to express my belief in myself and others as divine beings. As I act with faith, I accept deep, lasting strength and fortitude that help me surmount any challenges. Inspired by my faith, I move forward with confidence. Nothing is impossible for me. And from the scriptures, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you will say to the mountain, move from here to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible from you. Matthew chapter 17, verse 20.
I am that I am has brought me to this now moment. Here I am. I am that I am has brought me to this now moment. Here I am to be the voice and to be the heart through which heaven is made known on earth. To be the voice and to be the heart through which heaven is made known on earth. I am that I am. I am that I am. I am that I am. I am. I am that I am. I am that I am. I am that I am. I am.
In witness to the wisdom of the many paths to the sacred, we read from 3 sacred traditions on this morning's topic, revolutionary love, forgiveness, and reconciliation. From Buddhism, if we want to reconcile with our family or with friends who have hurt us, we have to take care of ourselves first. If we're not capable of listening to ourselves, how can we listen to another person? If we don't know how to recognize our own suffering, it won't be possible to bring peace and harmony into our relationships. From Thich Nhat Hanh. From Sikhism, where there is forgiveness, there is God himself. Adi Granth. and from Christianity. If you are offering your gift at the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First to be reconciled to your brother, and then come and offer your gift. Matthew chapter 5, verses 23 and 24.
Love in the words I say, peace in the world I make, God in every breath I take, joy in my day, joy in my day. Love in the words I say, peace in the world I make, God in every breath I take, joy in my day, joy in my day. We are lifted up, we are lifted up higher. We are lifted up, we are lifted up, we are lifted up higher. Love in the words we say, peace in the world we make, God in every breath we take, joy in our day, joy in our day. Love in the words we say, peace in the world we make, God in every breath we take, joy in our day, joy in our day. God in every breath we take, joy in our day, joy in our day. We are lifted up, we are lifted up higher. We are lifted up, we are lifted up, we are lifted up higher. Joy in my day, joy. We are lifted up, we are lifted up, we are lifted up higher. Joy in my day. Thank you.
Well, you'll really find out the connection of joy in this lesson, as I entitled it this morning, Breathe and Push with Joy. So, thank you. That was... So today we conclude our series on revolutionary love, based on the book See No Stranger, a memoir and manifesto of revolutionary love by Valerie Kaur. I know I'm not alone in having experienced periods of resistance over these past months, right? I mean, sometimes just wanting to escape into food or TV or sleep or video games. I mean, I never used to play any video games on my phone, and now got hooked on fishdom and very strange. Very strange. I finally have just said, okay, I don't need to do that anymore. I don't know why I brought it into my life, and now I'm letting it go. So the thing is, my pre-existing outrage fatigue has been exacerbated by the emotional toll of now 6+ months of COVID-19 protocols. And both of those things further intensified by my individual and our nation's collective awakening at an acute and transformative level to the realities of chronic, endemic, and inherent social injustice within our American institutions and culture. And don't even get me started on the stress around the upcoming election. I mean, Valerie Kaur has put words to this experience for me, and more than words, understanding, as she normalized my feelings, my frustrations, my helplessness, while at the same time inspiring, in spite of all of this, a reason, a determination, and a commitment to action and change. She brought an understanding that is made even more transformative by the solid spiritual foundation embodied in her definition and illustrations of revolutionary love, as choosing to enter into the wonder and labor for others, for our opponents, and for ourselves in order to heal and transform both ourselves and the broken world around us. And also her 10 practices that provide an integrated psycho-spiritual social approach, as well as practical applications of spiritual principle. In essence, love in action. Specifically, learning to love others and strangers by being willing to wonder about them, to grieve with them, and to fight for justice for and with them. Also, learning to love our opponents, our enemies, by tending to our own wounds first, in essence, creating safe containers for expressing our own righteous rage. Also, to have open heart-mind listening to our opponents' stories, their wounds and perspectives, and by reimagining and co-creating a new world grounded in equity and justice for all. And finally, learning to love ourselves through mindful breathing, creating lives of balance, including self-care, community connections, and support, and joy, which all sustain us for the long labor. Alternating that with pushing, going even deeper into our own healing and evolution and into the collective struggle to heal the world. And transitioning, our willingness and commitment to be changed at depth again and again as we birth new evolved identities and realities for ourselves and for the world. Finally, Kaur closes the book with an epilogue and a 10th practice: do it all through and with joy. This morning, we are turning our attention to the practices of pushing and transitioning as they apply to learning to love ourselves, and then we'll close with the final practice of joy. Last week, I shared Kaur's journey of learning to love herself by practicing the lifestyle of mindful breathing she learned through her deep connections with the Oak Creek Sikh community, who would come together after a mass shooting to wonder and grieve and fight, to rage and listen and reimagine the future, while they continued to breathe, push, and transition together to change hearts, minds, and policies. Most specifically, Kaur describes learning to live in the present moment, moving from moment with a capital M to moment with a capital M in a state of joyfulness inside the struggle. Because she says, when we labor in love, labor is not only a means, but an end unto itself. She begins chapter 8, which she entitles Push, with this statement. When I was finally ready to love myself, I had to learn how to breathe and push through my grief, rage, and trauma. On the other side, I found what seemed utterly impossible before: healing, forgiveness, and even reconciliation. So finally accepting that choosing to prioritize herself and her marriage for a time was not an act of self-indulgence, but of self-preservation, which in itself is an act of revolutionary love, Cora leaves on her honeymoon a year after her wedding, noting to herself, every time I felt a surge of guilt, I remembered my mother's instruction to allow myself the pleasures I wanted for everyone on earth. My gratitude would return to me and bring me back to this present moment. What a great lesson for all of us. As we strive to love our neighbors as ourselves, there's a reason that commandment says as ourselves. It's how we come to experience that we have enough to both have and share. Their journey of backpacking around the world provided a much-needed time for reflection, integration, and expanding perceptions. In her own words, Cora says, each place expanded the aperture of what I could see and therefore how much I could breathe in. I was accessing the force of life within me that was quietly releasing me from the hold of memories of trauma and shame that had been stitched into my skin since childhood. I was finding a home in my body now, on this earth, in this timeline. As the skies circled around me humming, "You are stardust." The world was good enough, strong enough, beautiful enough, and worthy enough to be saved. And my body was part of the body of the world. In order to love the world, I had to love myself. It was time now to push. Healing is a long journey of returning to our bodies. It is a kind of labor that requires breathing and pushing, resting, and then going deeper, willing to notice and befriend the sensations that are going on within us, including pain and discomfort, which we so often try and push away, and that only makes it worse. Healing is not necessarily the end to suffering, but it is the ability and freedom to return home again and again, to our bodies and to one another. So returning home from this year-long backpacking trip, Cora felt rest and joy in her body, and she was determined to sustain those feelings even as she picked up her work and labor again. She would learn from her close friend Joyce how to find and create joy in her everyday life, baking, gardening, biking, dancing, and when the world would grow dark, how to find comfort and healing in the love of family and friends. She would learn from her mother the transformative power of forgiveness as she watched her hospice, Cora's grandmother, her mother's mother-in-law, who had always been so cruel to her in her early years of marriage. After her grandmother died, Cora asked her mother, "How did you do it? How did you forgive her?" And her mother replied, "With time. It doesn't happen instantly." And then with tears in her eyes, her mother added, "Forgiveness is for you, not for the person who hurt you. For you, not them." Somewhere in her own healing journey, Cora's mother had been able to see grandmother in her fullness. A Punjabi farm woman working the fields of California who taught herself how to read, sign checks, and sell peaches at a profit. She had created a small empire out of dirt, bore 4 children, and brought all her siblings and their families from India to America. She was beloved by everyone, but she was cruel to Cora's mother because her in-laws were cruel to her. Grandmother did not have the wisdom to stop the cycle of oppression, but gratefully, Cora's mother did. "It's easy to love people who love you back," her mother had said. "When somebody gives you pain, how do you love that person? That is the real test of love." Cora emphasizes that forgiveness is not forgetting, But forgiveness is freedom from hate. It's loving ourselves enough to stop drinking the poison, hoping or expecting the other person to die, and instead healing and releasing our own wounds, our own pain, enough that we can begin to wonder again, and in wondering, to perhaps understand. She also stresses that forgiveness is not a substitute for justice, but it can serve as an energizer by reframing justice, not as retribution, but as cultural and institutional transformation. Kaur thought of Roshan, the cousin who had sexually assaulted her so many years before. It had been her rush to forgiveness then that had landed her in the empty park with him and the gun. Since that second assault, Kaur had focused on the security of her own body and refused Roshan's pleas for forgiveness. It had been a necessary act of self-agency for her. But after watching her mother forgive her grandmother, Kaur started feeling a new desire to let go of the animosity she was still holding. Forgiveness at this point in her life, at the end of a long internal healing process, finally felt like a gift to herself rather than to Roshan. So she began to forgive him in her heart, finally freeing herself. And she thought that would be the end of it. But sometimes forgiveness can open up the previously unimaginable possibility of reconciliation. Out of the blue, Roshan called to invite Kaur to his wedding. 10 years had passed since the assault with the gun, and he had become an engineer and had a fiancée. He was reaching out for reconciliation. Kaur's first response was physical, to recoil. She remembered Papa G on his deathbed, asking her to find peace with Roshan. But she also knew that survivors did not need to reconcile with their assailants in order to find peace. She needed time to think about it, and that's what she told him. By and large, we're not a culture or a nation practiced in reconciliation. Our concepts of justice is still largely based in an Old Testament eye for an eye retribution model, which does little in the way of healing survivors or perpetrators. In fact, our system tends to intensify the wounds all around. Reconciliation represents a more mature response to both individual and collective sins and crimes. In her words, she says, it rests on accountability. It requires perpetrators to accept full responsibility for their actions. In Truth and Reconciliation Commissions, the survivor shares the impact of the harm. The offender accepts responsibility, finds a way to repair it, and is reintegrated into the community. Such commissions have been used in more than 30 countries around the world, and although imperfect, they are powerful, life-giving alternatives to retribution. Kaur began to imagine what a truth and reconciliation process might look like between her and Roshan. And when Sharat, her husband, asked, "Is he aware of the impact of his actions on your life?" she decided to ask Roshan if he was willing to go through a reconciliation process with her. And he said, yes, anything. The story Kaur shares about the intensity and determination of their reconciliation process is very powerful and informative. She prepared a series of questions with her mentor healer, Tommy Woon. You remember he's the one that helped her go through the physical healing process of her traumas. Each question began with the words, "Do you acknowledge that?" And when Roshan broke down in remorseful tears, she was able to remember it wasn't her job to make him feel better. Woon had explained to her, when a perpetrator reckons with what they've done, they must be allowed to feel intense emotional pain. It's the first step to reconnecting with their own empathy and compassion. Reconciliation, Kaur adds, mends what has been torn asunder, but it does not return us to a point before the harm occurred. Kaur knew, and Roshan acknowledged, that even after his apology, she still did not owe him a relationship. But she did ultimately decide to attend his wedding, and while it was even more difficult than she had imagined, she was finally able to exhale and feel her grandfather's gratitude even in death. Years later, after experiencing the powerful #MeToo movement that held powerful men accountable for sexual harassment and abuse in a public reckoning, Cor realized she hungered for something more than just such retribution. She began to wonder about Rashawn and what the whole journey had been like for him. She had finally healed enough to wonder and listen. In a second intense and determined reconciliation session, Cor asked Rashawn, "How does this process feel to you?" And he responded, "Cathartic, like a new way of being in the world." That's a powerful statement. That's true transformation. Cor reflected on how our nation might evolve to adopt reconciliation over revenge and punishment, and considered what it was that made Rashawn's apology genuine so that they could both move on. And what she realized is, in essence, he had met the 4 elements that create the alchemy of the apology, a concept that was developed by Eve Ensler, the feminist activist and creator of the Vagina Monologues. The 4 elements are: 1, being willing to wonder about oneself and investigate one's own reasons for committing the harm. Number 2, being willing to wonder about the survivor and imagining how they feel and the suffering that they've endured. Number 3 is admitting what one did with specificity and detail, accepting responsibility for the consequences of one's actions, regardless of your intentions. And finally, number 4, doing the work of reparation. It's a process that can be taught, modeled, and practiced. The mandate is never on the victim to forgive, but the alchemy of the apology can set both parties free. The labor of reconciliation is complicated, unpredictable, and painful. Cor concludes, somehow, led by the deepest wisdom within us, Rashawn and I pushed together to the other side and transitioned our family into a new place, broken and whole, wounded and healed, which is, I think, the best shape for a family to be in. In tending to our own wounds, we show mercy to ourselves, which leads perhaps to a corresponding need to show mercy to others, releasing us from our attachment to punishment and enabling us to evolve in our pursuit of justice from retribution, an eye for an eye, to collective liberation. Can we imagine, can we wonder what such liberation could look like for our society as a whole? It surely seems that we have no idea how to reconcile the dark parts of our history with the nation that we aspire to be. Nevertheless, it is also clear that our willful forgetting keeps recreating the conditions for all that suppressed grief, rage, and shame to erupt in cycles of violence. What would it mean for us to love ourselves as a people, to push as a nation? Cor offers a stark and honest answer. America needs to reconcile with itself and do the work of apology, to say to indigenous black and brown people, we take full ownership for what we did. To say, we owe you everything. To say, we see how our harm runs through generations. To say, we own this legacy and will not harm you again. She adds, to promise the non-repetition of harm would require nothing less than transitioning the nation as a whole. It would mean retiring the old narrative about who we are, a city on a hill, without blame or fault, and embracing instead a new narrative of an America longing to be born, a nation whose promise lies in our future, a nation we can only realize by doing the labor, reckoning with the past, reconciling with ourselves, restructuring our institutions, and letting those who have been most harmed be the ones to lead us through the transition. Can you imagine such a scenario? What would it require of each one of us? How might we begin the labor in love and stay in the fire, letting the labor be both a means and an end unto itself? Cor concludes with the powerful image of a nation waiting to be born, the society we aspire to be, an America that is multiracial, multi-faith, multi-gendered, and multicultural, a nation where power is shared and we strive to protect the wellness and dignity of every person and work to save our earth and our collective future. Just breathe into that for a moment. How powerful is that as an image to hold? Transition, CORE's 9th practice, gets its name from the final stage of birthing labor, which is the most dangerous and the most painful. Many of us may relate to her description. Transition feels like dying, but it is the stage that precedes the birth of new life. It is also the point at which there is only one way out, and that is to go through, to push into the fire. It's an imperfect metaphor, CORE admits. There is no one point when a new society is born. But she compares it to the most difficult, fiery moments in our lives, saying in all of our various creative labors, making a living, raising a family, building a nation, there are moments that are so painful we want to give up. But inside the searing pain and encroaching numbness, we might also find the depths of our courage, hear our deeper wisdom, and transition to the other side. One of the greatest barriers to successful transitions is that inner voice within us that says, I can't. Now, I know none of you ever have that voice inside of you, but it is there for a lot of us. It's that inner critic that tells us we're not good enough, not pretty enough, not smart enough, yada, yada, yada. Actually, I don't think anyone escapes it, though it may certainly be louder or quieter, depending upon our culture, our family, our personal histories, and the work we've done to shift our focus. CORE once again shares and models her own journey of healing and evolving into spiritual maturity as she describes her process of dislodging the critic from the driver's seat in her mind and replacing it with that other inner voice that we all also have, what CORE calls her wise woman, and we might call our higher self, our spirit, our inner wisdom. In essence, that voice that tenderly reveals truth, wisdom, compassion, fearlessness, and guidance for this moment, if and when we get quiet enough to listen. It is also the voice we hear often through our children's innocence or through the realities of parenting. In the wake of continuing hate crimes, CORE realizes that her son, Kavi, a little brown boy with long hair who might one day wear a turban as part of his faith, was growing up in a nation more dangerous for him than it was for her, and that she would not always be there to keep him safe. Fear beginning to overwhelm her, her wise husband, Sharat, asked, "What does wise woman say?" That became a pattern that he would prompt her to help shift her back into that inner voice within her. We all need that person to remind us, and that's a lot of what we do for one another as a community. She responded, "Breathe and then push." And a few months later, she left Stanford Law to found the Revolutionary Love Project. Fast forward to election night 2016. CORE describes the experience that I can certainly relate to as the unthinkable became the inevitable. She says, it felt like dying. It felt like the death of everything we believed in, the death of equality and freedom, the death of promise and progress, the death of democracy, the death of America, and our place in it. In the midst of this cycling into doom, however, she felt a tug on her shirt and heard her son Kavi shouting, "Evening edition, evening edition." That was what they called their bedtime routine of stories, dances, and shabads that they did together every night to get Kavi ready to go to sleep. Turning to Sharat, CORE said, "I can't." And Sharat replied, "You said every night. Your rules." I can feel the exhale, can't you? Just like that. "Okay," she said. I again turned to her own eloquent words that captured this perfect example, experience, and description of transitioning. We turned off CNN, sat on the red cushion, and Kavi handed me the little engine that could. I think I can. I wanted to throw it across the room. I read it anyway. "Dance time, Mommy," said Kavi. "That's the last thing I can do right now." But Sharat turned on the music. I got to my feet and shifted from side to side, looking miserable. Then Kavi leapt into my arms. The music rose. Baby, you're a firework. I tossed Kavi in the air and he laughed, and then I laughed. And we were dancing, Sharat and Kavi and me. We were dancing on election night. I felt the energy in my body. I felt joy. Boom, 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 even the brighter than the moon, moon, moon. Joy, Core reflects, returns to us everything that is good and beautiful and worth fighting for. In joy, we see even darkness with new eyes. I was not alone. I was one in millions. I was part of a movement, one in a constellation. I had to shine my light in my specific slice of sky. I could do that. She concludes, all I knew was that the future was dark, and that as it got darker and more violent, people would get tired, go numb, and retreat into whatever privilege they might have. I wanted to help people stay in the fire. I wanted to help myself stay in the fire. I concluded that revolutionary love was the call of our times and started building the tools to practice it. I don't think any of us imagined that night just how dark it could get. But like Core, my faith, our faith, teaches us that life is ever expanding, ever unfolding, the upward progressive spiraling movement of love. Meaning this apparently destructive chaos we're in is creating the primordial soup out of which an evolutionary leap will occur. And as in the butterfly metamorphosis, clusters of imaginal cells, in essence leaders and communities, are now coming together and connecting with others of like mind, building the potential to transform systems, policies, and processes to meet the greatest challenges in our world today. Even in the midst of our current chaos, I have personally felt the transformative energy of the Black Lives Matter movement that actually embodies the society we aspire to be. Let me share it again so we can all begin to hold this vision and imagine it together. An America that is multiracial, multi-faith, multi-gendered, and multicultural. A nation where power is shared and we strive to protect the wellness and dignity of every person and work to save our earth and our collective future. Core observes, if we take a linear view of history, then we are sliding backward. But if we see the story of America as one long labor, then we have a different view. Progress during birthing labor is cyclical, not linear. It is a series of expansions and contractions, and each turn through the cycle brings us closer to what is being born. It is a pattern inherent in our nation's history. The labor is ongoing, the justice relentless, but each time people organize, each turn through the cycle opens a little more space for equality and justice. And it also creates an ancestral memory. We carry the memory of movements that came before us. Like the body in labor, we have gained more embodied knowledge about what to do when the crises come. Even when the crises are unprecedented, we can still turn to the wisdom of our ancestors for how to labor, to wonder, to grieve, to fight, to rage, to listen, to reimagine, to breathe and to push, and find the bravery we need to move through the transition. It is our task to innovate and apply these practices in each new reality we find ourselves in. Case in point, our own COPA actions work to help those who didn't qualify for stimulus assistance by successfully advocating for an expansion of the California Earned Income Tax Credit to include the undocumented workers who file taxes, which is a big part of our local essential labor force. And we're currently working to develop effective interventions into the pandemic that is disproportionately affecting our county's farm workers and keeping our county in the purple, meaning worst range. If you're like me, you're probably feeling caught in the space in between hope and desperation, or in the pendulum extremes of alternating moments. It often feels to me like I'm holding my breath. And so I try to remember Core's words, that no matter how hopeful or hopeless we feel, we can choose to return to the labor anyway. Because when we labor in love, labor is not only the means, but an end unto itself. I've almost stopped listening to the news at all. I'm finding it easy to get the few main points without dwelling in it. And if I do listen to it, I do it when I'm doing my power walking back and forth so that the energy can just flow through me. I'm working on accepting what is without getting caught up in the energy of outrage, while still acknowledging where outrage is appropriate, and then shifting my attention to what I can do in this moment. In essence, to learn more, grow more, and act on guidance. And I thank God for COPA as an organization that allows me to actually focus and direct my energies. And we can all find the things that we can do, whether it's working at the food bank or tending to your neighbor who can't get out to get groceries. We can all do something to begin to transition our world. But that's not all. Cora leaves us with one more essential practice that I've been suggesting throughout this, which is joy. In her epilogue, she shares that just as she began writing this book, her good friend, body worker, healer, Joyce, the friend who taught her about finding joy in each day, was dying of cancer. Cora and her mother went to hospice joy through her last days. And after lovingly doing that, and then bathing and preparing her body, accompanying her to the crematorium where her remains were burned amidst sick, I have to learn to pronounce that right, it's not sick, it's sick, Kirtanas. I've been looking up all these words, trying to learn how to pronounce them appropriately. So I always called them kirtans, but they're Kirtanas. The next morning, they woke up to a new snow. Eating her mother's soup, Cora felt a tingling in her body and realized she was pregnant again. Life and death and life again. Baby Joy would be born 48 hours after Cora delivered the first draft of this book to her editor. She literally wrote the book in 9 months and gave birth to not only the book, but to her new baby girl. And so I close with her closing words and reminder. Joy is possible even amid great labors, the labor of dying and birthing and the labors in between. We cannot force it, but when we create moments to breathe between labor pains and surrender our senses to the present moment, notice the colors, light, and feeling of being alive, here, together, joy comes more easily. It is a felt sense in our bodies. In the face of horrors visited upon our world daily, in the struggle to protect our loved ones, choosing to let in joy is a revolutionary act. Joy returns us to everything good and beautiful and worth fighting for. It gives us energy for the long labor. Letting in joy, therefore, is the 10th practice of revolutionary love, the core practice that sustains all the others. Joy is the gift of love. It makes the labor an end in itself. I believe laboring in joy is the meaning of life. May we let joy in, for we will be someone's ancestors one day. If we do this right, they will inherit not our fear, but our bravery, born of joy. Many of us will likely not personally witness this new world of our shared vision, but we can do this. We can leave a legacy of love and joy in the midst of our great labor as agents of revolutionary love. I hope this journey into See No Stranger has been as meaningful for you as it has been for me. And as I begin this next chapter of my life, turning 70 is definitely a milestone. I am so grateful for each one of you and the joy you bring into my life. I'm holding a vision and looking forward to when we will meet again together in person and be able to hug and laugh and cry together. And most importantly, to continue this spiritual journey together, walking our talk into transition and transformation. Namaste. I'm doing meditation.
I forgive you.
forgive all and live my life in peace. I forgive you. I forgive me. I forgive all and live my life in peace.
So I invite you to get comfortable wherever you're sitting or laying. Ideally, get into a position that your body will stay relaxed, in a position that allows you to focus. And I invite you to begin to focus on your breath. Breathing in, God is here. Breathing out, I am home. The tradition of Yom Kippur is very appropriate to the breathe and push and transition in hope that we've just been exploring. And so we embrace this meditation by Victoria Safford called At One. Imagine this. On the days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, every fall, every year, the people make their peace with anyone they have wronged or slighted or injured or in any way neglected in the past 12 months. The task is not to patch things up or smooth things over or reach a compromise or sweep mistakes and uneasy memories under the rug. The task is not to feel better. The task is ownership. The goal is truth for its own redemptive sake. I did this, I said this to you, and it was wrong. I neglected this, I botched this, I betrayed you thusly. I demeaned you, whether you ever knew it or not. This is the truth in which both of us are living. I ask you to forgive me. Imagine how many deep breaths you would need to take. Imagine how many doors you'd have to knock on, how many phone calls you need to make, how many letters, how many lunches and coffees, how many awkward moments with your children and your parents and with strangers. That cashier to whom you spoke so sharply. Awkward is irrelevant. The task is not about comfort. It is about truth, about wholeness and holiness, restoration. Imagine this. Someone has been preparing all year to speak with you, to write to you, to ask you a hard question. Perhaps in some way not quite conscious, you have even known this, and you have been preparing too. Finally, you answer the door or the phone or open the letter with shaky hands, and there it is. What you thought you'd been longing for but really have dreaded. Someone is asking your forgiveness. The task is not about comfort. It is about truth. Awkward is irrelevant. You get to choose now. You have to choose whether and how you will participate in restoration. Abandon the pleasant piety that claims knee-jerk forgiveness as the unquestioned moral course. You get to choose which way will be right in this case, between you as persons and with all your gods. What response will make the world more whole? Imagine. Something yearns in us to come round right. Something creaky, rusty, heavy, almost calcified within us tries, in spite of us and all of our fears and self-deceptions, to turn and creak and turn again and finally come around a little truer. Something in us stretches towards conversion. Imagine healing wholly from within for a few moments in the silence. And now as we begin to breathe our awareness back to this time and this space, regrounding ourselves back into our bodies, let us imagine and breathe life into the world we are creating together through the choices and healing we demonstrate together. And let us give thanks for this opportunity, this challenge, and this calling.
Forgive you. I forgive me. I forgive all and live my life in peace. I forgive you. I forgive me. I forgive all and live my life in peace. I forgive you. I forgive me. I forgive all and live my life in peace.
And so it is. Amen, and amen.
Unity of Monterey Bay is the collective consciousness and commitment of all of us who give of our time, treasure, and talent in order to sustain the spiritual community that is dedicated to transforming lives. We know that prosperity is a state of mind that finds blessings in every situation and abundance in joyous generosity. We transform all appearance or fear or lack into a faith-filled peace of mind by shifting our attention to thoughts of gratitude for the abundance of God's good in our lives. And with our hearts and minds overflowing with gratitude, we breathe in the divine flow of God's good, trusting that we are enough and that we have enough, and that there always is enough to both have and to share. And again, we are grateful to all of you for your online giving through our website at unityofmontereybay.org and through your mailed-in offerings, including those who have set up automatic giving with your banking institutions. We are truly blessed. And now, from this place of faith and gratitude, I invite you to join me in mindful intention in joining in our offertory blessing. I am an open channel for God's infinite good. divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies everything I give and everything I receive. I am both blessed and a blessing. Thank you, God.
For years I would talk about how I wanted to change the world, but I always left it up to someone else to do. But then I finally realized I needed to take a stand, and that by changing my thinking, I could change my life. That's how I could change the world. So let there be peace. I am a stand for peace. Let there be love. I am a stand for love. Let there be joy. I am a stand for joy. We are making a new world now. So let there be peace. I am a stand for peace. Let there be love. I am a stand for love. Let there be joy. I am a stand for joy. We are making a new world now. Let there be peace. I am a stand for peace. Let there be love. I am a stand for love. Let there be joy. I am a stand for joy. We are making a new world now. Let there be peace. I am a stand for peace. Let there be love. I am a stand for love. Let there be joy. I am a stand for joy. We are making a new world now. 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 Woo! All right. Thanks, everybody.
Woot, woot. Well, guess what? You heard her mention it.
That's
but
right.
Yesterday was our
That's right.
Reverend Vicky's 70th birthday.
So come on up.
And if you ask me, she is making 70 look fabulous.
Spectacular. Spectacular 70.
Come
so
on up
come
so we
on
can
up.
embarrass you.
Here we go.
Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Woo! Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Vicky. Happy birthday to you. God is blessing you now. God is blessing you now. God is blessing you. You're wonderful. God is blessing you now. Woo! All right.
I think I speak for everyone when I say, Vicki, we love you very much. So,
Amen.
wish you so much joy in the next year. Mm-hmm. And she's setting the bar high for us, guys. She's showing us what 70 looks like, and it looks pretty good. All right. So, want to thank once again our awesome music team, and it's so fun to have John over here on drums.
First time.
I know,
Awesome,
he's got all the
awesome.
special effects.
Woohoo!
There was cymbals and stuff. I
Yay.
was like, wow. Sounds awesome. We also want to thank Karen Green, Denise Rosier, Richard Burdick, and Karen Drucker for allowing us to use their music during this time. So, as we prepare to bring this service to a close this morning, we are just so grateful that you have joined us here today, and we hope that we have made you feel at home at our wonderful Unity of Monterey Bay community. And most importantly, we want you to know that wherever you are on your spiritual path, you are welcome here. Our church is a prayer-conditioned, pre-prayed, prayed up kind of church. And so just know that our chaplains during this time are holding prayer every week, and you can submit your prayer requests via our website at unityofmontereybay.org. as well as avail yourself any time of day or night of the prayer service that is Silent Unity. And call them up or email them or use their app, and someone will pray with you. We are having our coffee hour after the service, beginning, well, give us a little bit of time, but 11:20-ish. And so the link for that is in your e-blast, and we invite you to join us for just informal discussion of today's topic or anything else that's coming up. And so now, as we bring this time to a close, just imagining and envisioning that circle of love and light and joy that is our UMB community, and just know that we are all here holding that circle for you while you are joining us from wherever you are, and you are part of this circle. So please join me in our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. And the presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as creator, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
So once again, thank you for joining us today, and have an awesome week.